Mrs. Kim gave Van a stern look before walking away, leaving her to start the day's chorus. Van, still weak and recovering from her fever, forced herself to get moving. She began to the laundry carefully. After finishing the laundry, she moved to the living room to clean. As she was dusting the shelves, Leah entered the room, noticing how pale and tired Van looked. Well, let me help you, she offered, reaching out to take the duster from her hand. What do you think you are doing? Leah froze, stepping back. You are supposed to be running errands for me, not standing around. Go to the market and buy foods for my dog. After that, head to your home and take a break for 2 days. I don't need you until Taehyung's dead and Taehyung return. She narrowed, I will handle things my way. She hesitated, giving one a concerned look, but left the house quietly, knowing better than to disobey. Now, with Leah gone, one Mrs. Kim made sure Van would handle everything alone. One exhausted went back to the cleaning, but her fever was making. As she was cooking, Mrs. Kim entered the kitchen, checking on her progress. She tasted the food and immediately scolded. What is this? She shouted, her voice harsh. It's blunt. My guests expect a proper meal, not this tasteless mess. One, too tired and fed up with Mrs. Kim's constant criticism, straightened up. I have done my best despite not feeling well, she said, her voice already. Maybe you should appreciate that for once, Mom. Mrs. Kim's eyes flashed with anger. You think you can talk back to me? Don't forget, my husband is still paying for your mother's hospital bill. You owe me everything to this family or nothing without us. She spat, her voice cutting deep. One face palm from the slab and her heart sank with guilt. Mrs. Kim had made it clear that no matter what one did, she would never be seen as worthy in her eyes. Despite being married to Taehyung, who genuinely loved and cared for her, tears stung in her eyes, but when refused to cry in front of Mrs. Kim, she turned back to the stove, staring the pot silently, her mind racing. She hated how powerless she felt, but she couldn't see a way out, not when. The older woman crossed her arms, her cold eyes scanning while up and down. You should be grateful, man. She sneered. I could have chosen someone far better for my son. Someone with respectful family, background and wealth, but instead they married you. Well, nobody just because of his father's ridiculous sympathy for her situation. She gripped the spoon tightly, her knuckles turning white. Every word cut her deeper, but she forced herself to stay calm, knowing that reaction would only make things worse. She stepped closer, whispering, you think being pregnant will change everything? You think giving my son a child will make you more valuable in this family? You are mistaken. That baby is the only reason we are tolerating you now. But don't think for a second that you have earned a place here. One stomach crunched and she fought the urge to resort. She knew Mrs. Kim was trying to break her, but she couldn't give her that satisfaction. To another tense silence. Since you are so determined to act like you belong here, I expect you to work like it. When we're done with the cooking, you will scrub the floor in every room, clean the windows, and prepare the guest room for my friends. Could barely stand with the fever coursing through her body, but Mrs. Kim didn't care. I nodded weakly to her to argue and focus on the task at hand. Van and Them got married 6 months ago, when father had been Mr. Kim's loyal and trusted secretary for many years, and Mrs. Kim always treated him like a brother. 1 year ago, when mother fell seriously ill and they needed a lot of money for her treatment, Mr. Kim was ready to give help without hesitation, but when father, because of his nature, insisted on giving something in return. When father was overjoyed and Mr. Kim was happy with the arrangement too. When father knew Taehyung was a good man and Mr. Kim had always been a good-hearted person. Besides, Mr. Kim already knew that his son has a crush on his secretary's daughter, so he decided to make this proposal a reality. Both Taehyung and Wan were happy about the marriage, but Mrs. Kim wasn't. She was never wanted Wan as a daughter-in-law. She had always evidenced her best friend's daughter as a perfect match for Taehyung. Mrs. Kim made several plans to stop the marriage, but all of them failed. Taehyung refused to marry anyone else beside Wan. Ever since then, Mrs. Kim has made Wan's life a hell. Wan didn't want to tell Taehyung about it because he loved his parents dearly and didn't want to be the reason to breaking the family apart. Wan still holds to be hope that one day Mrs. Kim will accept her and love her, just like she loves Taehyung's brother's wife. Once the guests arrived, Mrs. Kim continued, I expect you to serve them personally. Don't embrace me with your clumsy, lazy ways. If you spill a single drop or make mistake, I will regret it. Wan didn't answer. She couldn't. Her throat felt tight with exhaustion and frustration. She knew she couldn't please Mrs. Kim no matter how hard she tried, but she had no choice. As she finished her cooking, began cleaning, her body swelled with dizziness. She had to lean against the wall for support as she scrubbed to the floor, her breath coming in solo grabs. Every moment felt like a momentous effort, but she pushed the pain, knowing that Mrs. Kim would have no mercy on her if she slowed it down. Hours passed, and by the time Anne cleaned and through the living room, inspecting Anne's work with a critical eye, she ran a finger along the edge of the table, checking for the dust before looking at Van with a sneer. Despite hope she circled if she were doing one a favor, not a criticizing her father. Now go change into something presentable. My friend will be here anytime. One nodded numbly and dragged herself upstairs to the change. Her entire body urged. Her head throbbed with pain, but she knew Mrs. Kim wouldn't care. She changed into a simple dress, trying her best to look. When she was downstairs, the guests had already arrived. Mrs. Kim was all smile, laughing and chatting with them, as she hadn't just spent the entire morning tormenting Van. The shifting under Hamner was jarring Van, but wasn't surprised. As began some of the guests, Mrs. Kim's sharp eyes followed her every move. One hand trembled as she poured tea and set down plates, praying the wouldn't make a mistake. One of the guests, an elegant older woman, looked at Van curiously. "This is your daughter-in-law?" Mrs. Kim smiled at her. "Yes, this is Van," she said, her tone unsatisfied of forced pleasantries. "She's trying her best to adjust." The woman nodded, seemingly oblivious to underlying tension. "She seems sweet," she said, giving Van a kind of. Mrs. Kim narrowed slightly, but she didn't respond. Instead, she turned to Van, her voice low and threatening. "Why are you standing here, sweetie? Go prepare dessert." Van swallowed hard and nodded, entering the kitchen as quickly as she could. She felt like she was walking on eggshell every step, making mistakes. She prepared the dessert carefully, her hand shaking. As she carried herself back to the living room, her legs felt weak and she nearly stormed. Mrs. Kim shot her warning eye and Van steadied herself, forcing herself to stay upright. She placed the dessert in front of each guest. Van felt her legs forward and cleared the table, listening to Mrs. Kim's friends gossiping and laughing in the background. Mrs. Kim's sharp voice through the chatter. "Van, before you go for the dog, he's been waiting long enough. I don't know why everything takes you so long." Van nodded silently, exhaustion weighing her down. She turned to the living room, where dogs were laying on the bed. But as soon as she took a few steps, a sharp pain shot through her stomach. She gasped quietly and her heart throbbed and the room started spinning. She could hear the faint barking of the dog in the distance, but it felt like everything was slipping away from her. Her vision blurred and she reached out to steady herself against the table. The dog barked louder, this time in concern, sensing something was wrong. When breath came into short, shallow as Gab's pain worsened, she tried to focus on her leg gave out and her body tilted dangerously forward. Just before she lost consciousness, she heard the front door swing open, followed by the sound of a step rushing towards her. The young voice filled with panic as his eyes fall on her collapsing form. He sprinted toward her in just time, catching her before she hit the floor, and body was slumped in his arm. Had she fainted, her head resting against his chest, Mr. Kim stood frozen in the doorway, his face pale and shocked, while Taehyung had his wife tightly. Taehyung had pounded in his chest as he cradled violently her body in his arm. He knelt down, slowly tapping her face like a desperation gripping in his voice. "One, open your eyes, please." His voice trembled thick with worry, and he tapped her cheek again, but there was no response. Her face was pale and her body was unnaturally cold. Mr. Kim, who had been standing in the shock by the door, rushed over his feet and with concern what happened then, what's wrong with her. He leaned down, checking for us. Hearing the commotion, Mrs. Kim entered the room, her expression freezing the moment she saw Wang's unconscious in Taehyung's arm. Her friend had fallen silent, watching the scene unfold. Mrs. Kim gulped, nervously trying to suppress the discomfort rising in her chest. She knew exactly when Wang had collapsed. He turned to his wife, his eyes narrowing. "What the hell happened here? Why is she like this?" Mrs. Kim accidentally pressed it to thin line. "I don't know," she just throwing the chorus. Then I shot up, fury flashing across his face without waiting. The another word, he stopped one into his arm, carrying her style. "I'm taking her to the room," he muttered through the grit that his jaw tightly. Taehyung stormed out of the living room, carrying my Mr. Kim glared at his wife, "Call the doctor now," he ordered sharply. Meanwhile, Taehyung carried the woman gently laying down on the bed. He sat each stroking her head softly, his heart disappearing with worry. "Please, Van, wake up." His voice went barely whisper now, as if he's being louder than shattered the fragrant face in the room. Back in the living room, Mr. and friend began to gather their belongings, exchanging uncomfortable glances. One of them cleared their thought and breaking the awkward silence. We should get going now, she said carefully, but you need to take care of your daughter-in-law. She looks really sick. She nodded, biting her lips. Yes, thank you for coming. I will handle it, she replied. I was right. Dr. Rose entered her room, circular expression dark with concern as she saw when unconscious on the bed. Her face was pale, his hand shaking as he moved aside to give her space. Doctor, please tell me she will be okay. Taehyung's voice was thick with worry. Doc didn't answer immediately. She went when, carefully checking her pulse and temperature, brown deepened as she worked. Taehyung felt his stomach tighten with anxiety. After that spell, the internity doctor Rose stood up, straight up, stained face. She is burning with fever, Taehyung. She shouldn't have happened. I told her mother since that one needed rest. She is not strong right now. She is weak. His voice controlled, but there was unmistakable edge of anger. Taehyung heart saying, you what? Doctor was tired, shaking her head and controlled. I called 1 in the morning, told her I'm coming today for a proper checkup. But she told me not to come because she had too much work to do around the house. She said hesitantly, like she didn't want to admit how overwhelmed she was. I warned her not to overexert herself. Mr. Kim, who had just walked in, now standing frozen by the door, his eyes nodding as he looked at Mrs. Kim. What is she talking about? Rose has burst with frustration. This is happening because Mrs. Kim ignored my instruction. As Mrs. told yesterday that mine wasn't well. Mrs. Kim stood near the door, her arm crossed, her face flushed with indignation, but she tried to keep her composure. Are you implying this is my fault, doctor? She snapped, her voice defensive and sharp. Doctor was turned, glaring directly at Mrs. Kim. Yes, I am. Wine is in no condition to do all the chorus you made her to do. It's not so bad she collapsed and she shouldn't have resting and warned you about it yesterday, but it's simply you didn't take me seriously. Her face twisted with anger. How dare you speak to me like that? She raised her voice, her pride stung. One is my daughter and she's been fine. You're exaggerating. Just because she's little bit doesn't mean she can do simple household work. Enough. Taehyung stood up, his jaw clenched, looking dangerously at his mother. A little weak for even listening, one helpless danger. His voice was rasped but under displays. Then Mrs. Kim turned to glare at Taehyung. You think I don't care? I run this household for years and I know when someone is really. No, she is not tired. Doctor was cut her voice. She has been overworked, stressed, and neglected, and now she is paying the price for it. This isn't something you can brush off, Mrs. Kim. You need to stop pushing her so hard. Her eyes flashed, unwilling to back down. Don't put this on me, doctor. You didn't mention anything serious yesterday. If she really couldn't handle it, she had spoken up. Her tone was dismissive, trying to shift the blame. Think flashes with an anger bubbling. Mom, this is enough. Doctor Rose knows what she is talking about. You can't just pretend like this isn't serious. Who had been quiet until now, finally spoke, his voice terribly disappointed. This is now how we treated family, especially someone like Vine who has done nothing but take care of his house. Her voice mouth to argue about the weight of her husband was silent. That momentarily she swallowed hard, still unwilling to admit Rose exhaled sharply, shaking her head. Vine is stressed and Papa care, and frankly, if she doesn't get it, her condition will worsen if we care about her. Pride flagged once again, but seeing the cold anger in her son's and disappointed in her husband's face, she simply turned away. Dr. Rose gazed often as she looked back at them. Make sure she's staying back for the next 2 days. Taehyung, no work, no stress. I will prescribe something to help with the fever. Taehyung nodded, his voice hoarse. Thank you, doctor. Will make sure of it. He shot a glance at the mother, the expression hard. I won't let this happen again. Taehyung was still furious. He couldn't believe how far this mom had gone. Despite his warning, he had already told that if she had ever tried to harm Vine, he wouldn't forgive her. Yet there were Vine still unconscious laying in the bed of Mrs. Kim Kirill's behavior. Taehyung, fine, my parents are coming. We should move into our new mansion. Went from looking at him. But Taehyung wanted to spend time with her parents. Seeing her sad, Taehyung pulled her into his lap, hugging her tightly. Fine, I know mom doesn't like you since the beginning. That's why she left for Japan right after her wedding. Using business and excuse, and since our new mansion wasn't ready yet, it took 6 months for it to finish. Taehyung, please don't say that. She's your mother. That's why she feels like I'm taking away from her. Do you know how much I love and respect her? I want her to accept me too. Please stay. If we stay with them for a few days, she will start liking me. She remembers softly playing the buttons of his shirt. Taehyung kissed the cheek and gently made her look into his eyes. Are you sure? Don't you want your mom to accept me too? You don't understand how I feel when she only cares about Silky. Only Taehyung's sister-in-law. I get jealous. They feel left out. She pouted, making Taehyung chuckle. Jealous, checking I can shower with all the love in the world and I pamper you endlessly, pulled her closer, kissing her neck. You don't understand, I want to win her heart. Taehyung paused, thinking for a moment. Okay, but promise me if she ever says something bad to you or tries to hurt you, you will tell me immediately. One battle depend then not it, okay? Flashback and back in the present as he watched while lying unconscious, Taehyung couldn't help but remember she had wanted to barely to be accepted by his mom, but looked very tired at her. His anger boiled again. He clenched his fist. He would never forgive his mother, found it and wake up soon. Now Taehyung's mind was racing while Claudia had promised to protect her, and now she is lying unconscious because he had allowed her to stay with his mother. Despite her love and care, he had shown her he couldn't protect her from his own family. Taehyung was nearly carrying someone had when suddenly she started, her eyes spreading open. His eyes widened in relief. Jay, are you okay? Tell me, how are you feeling now? He asked, his voice full of concern and frowned slightly as she looked at him and disoriented. Taehyung, when did you arrive? What are you doing here? She asked in a sobbing voice. Taehyung let out a deep sigh and sat back down calmly. How could I stay away from finding out my wife is pregnant, now seeing how weak you are? Your health isn't right. He explained, his voice softening after finishing up meeting and wrapped up everything with that we rushed back early. One gave him a small weak smile, but then without warning Taehyung lifted her shirt slightly. When I widened in surprise, she quickly slapped his hand away before continuing to hold her gently. What are you doing? She asked shyly, her cheeks flushing. Taehyung chuckled before leaning to kiss her tummy, sending goosebumps across her skin. She blushed deep and I told you to tell me everything if she tried to hurt you or said something cruel. When his voice changed, growing darker and more serious, his sudden shift in a tone made Wine nervous. Wine, what are you saying, Taehyung? What I'm saying is, did you lose your memory after fainting in the husband? He asked with a sharp edge, making one girl nervously. I have been quiet this whole time, waiting for you to tell me the truth, to keep the promise you made to me. One battle, feeling guilt under his strain. I told you that woman doesn't deserve your respect or love. One eyes filled up tears and the expression softened. He reached down gently, wiped away tears. You don't need to do it anymore, love. You don't need to earn her love and approval. We are leaving the morning. Okay, you and me and our baby, we are done here. He kissed her forehead gently as one heart tugged with emotion. She knew Taehyung was right, but the part of her still longed for Mrs. Kim's acceptance.